Welcome to our exploration of the mysterious legend of the Michigan Dogman. This intriguing creature, rooted in Michigan folklore, was first reportedly sighted in 1887 in Wexford County, described as a towering 7-foot tall figure with piercing blue or amber eyes. The Dogman combines the alarming features of a bipedal canine with the torso of a human. Its most chilling characteristic is its howl, eerily similar to a human scream. According to local legends, this elusive creature tends to appear in a predictable 10-year cycle, surfacing in years, ending in 7, but can be warded off by a simple, loud clap. While the Dogman is primarily spotted in the northwestern quadrant of Michigan's Lower Peninsula, tales of its presence persist across various parts of the state. Join us as we delve into the stories and sightings that have fueled the enduring legend of the Michigan Dogman. I remember the night vividly, a mix of excitement and sheer unease. I was driving through one of Michigan's remote areas not far from Manistee River. I'd heard tales of the Michigan Dogman growing up, how it was this legendary creature that locals had been spotting since way back in 1887. People described it as a towering figure with amber eyes, a dog's head, and a man's torso, standing a solid 7 feet tall. The thought of confronting something like that was both thrilling and terrifying. The night air had that eerie stillness, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The full moon cast long shadows across the road, and everything felt oddly surreal. As I drove deeper into the dense forest, my headlights caught a fleeting figure on the side of the road. It moved with a speed and grace that couldn't possibly belong to a human. Heart pounding, I slowed down, straining my eyes to get a better look. That's when I saw it, standing upright just beyond the tree line. Its eyes glowed an unsettling amber in the moonlight, locked onto mine. I could see the outline of its canine head, the powerful, muscular build of its upper body, and the way it seemed perfectly balanced on 2 legs. The stories about its howl sent shivers down my spine, though I'm relieved I never heard it for myself. I felt like I was frozen in time, every unnatural detail etched into my memory. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, that same eerie aura sticking with me long after I'd left the forest behind. Everywhere I went, I shared the story, hoping to find someone who'd seen the Dogman too. Most people dismissed it, but in Michigan, there are quite a few who nod knowingly. They've heard the history, the encounters in Wexford County back in 1887, the multiple sightings through the decades, and they know this wasn't just folklore. It was real. Now, with its 10-year cycle pointing to a return in 2027, I can't help but feel both a shiver of fear and a strange anticipation. Would I want to see it again? Maybe, maybe not, but I definitely won't forget what I saw out there in the woods that night. I was driving home, taking my usual route near Howard City, when something strange caught my eye. At first, I thought it was just a pile of large black garbage bags strewn across the road on my left. They were almost spilling into my lane, so I veered slightly to the right. But as I got closer, my headlights painted a much clearer picture, and I could feel my heart start to race. This wasn't just trash. It was a creature, its black fur rippling with every movement, darker than the night around it. The fur looked rough, wild, almost like it had a mind of its own. Then I noticed the vivid red of blood and flesh. The thing was devouring roadkill right there in front of me, and it was massive, about half the size of my car. Pure adrenaline kicked in, and I was freaking out. By the time I was closer to home, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. The moon was huge and orange, casting an eerie glow over everything, and it clicked. I'd seen something, and with the moon like that, it just felt unreal. The weird part is, this all happened near that local butcher shop. I've grabbed bacon from there a few times, but once it smelled like wet dog when I cooked it, which I thought was strange. The butcher shop's right next to a dense patch of woods, and honestly, there are hardly any streetlights in that area. It's mostly just trees and open road. I told my partner about the encounter, but they didn't believe me. My brother, though, he gets it. All I know for sure is I saw that thing, huge and covered in dark fur, feasting on something in the road. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. It was a typical cold winter night in Lowell, 2008. I was lying in bed with my family all tucked in and sleeping soundly. The house was quiet, and the only sound was the wind outside. But then, out of nowhere, I heard a loud thud on the roof, jolting me awake. Instantly, my mind raced back to strange stories from my childhood about mysterious creatures lurking in the night. Despite my better judgment, curiosity got the best of me. I quietly slipped out of bed, grabbed the old machete I kept for security, and sneaked outside to see what was going on. As I stepped out into the biting cold, my eyes were drawn upwards, and that's when I saw it. Peering over the edge of the roof was a creature I'd never forget, its eyes an unnaturally vibrant blue. It was the Dogman, just like in those old tales, staring directly at me. Before I could even process what I was seeing, it leaped effortlessly from the roof a good 30 feet, landing silently in the snow. It bolted on all fours towards the tree line, then suddenly paused. Standing upright, it turned back to face me, its gaze locking onto mine in an unnerving way that seemed to freeze time. Despite every instinct screaming at me to stay put, I found myself running toward it, machete in hand, driven by a mix of fear and desperation to protect my family. But just as I got close, it did something I couldn't believe. It spoke. "Don't," it said, the word hanging in the air. Those simple words stopped me dead. An unnatural sense of calm washed over me, as if the world had slowed down. I lowered my arm, letting the machete fall into the snow with a dull thud. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, the Dogman looking almost amused, maybe even understanding. Then, with one last intense look, it turned and walked into the woods, disappearing among the trees with a grace that seemed impossible for a creature of its size. I stood there, breathless and bewildered, unsure if I'd been dreaming, but the cold in my bones told me it was real. Eventually, I backed away, heading inside to the warmth of my house. I never spoke of it to anyone, but I knew I'd never be able to shake the memory of that winter night or those piercing blue eyes.